For everyone watching on the YouTube, we should be getting going here in about 5 minutes. What is up, everybody? How's it going?
What's up? You scared me.
What's up, Andrea?
All good. How's everyone? How are you, Jacob? Feeling better?
A little bit, yeah. It was really weird. This might sound strange, but I don't even think like I was sick. I think I literally had just like straight up food poisoning. It was so bad.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Actually, even though we're thousands of miles away from each other, my partner's family got down with a food bug as well for like 5 days straight. So
Really? Yeah. It's because I have no other explanation for it. Because I woke up, felt awful, and then the next morning woke up and felt nothing. So I don't. I have no idea how that works, but yeah, it must be some stomach bug going around.
internationally.
Yeah, it's the entire world. The new stomach bug. What's up, BZ? Hey, Bam, Calcoin. Hello, hello. Oh, I see Dean here. Hey, Dean.
Hey, Jacob.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Not that I was happy to hear that you were ill, but this time is way better than a Saturday night. So this is cool.
Oh, it is. So that's good to hear. Maybe we'll consider even changing it. Yeah, I mean this is gonna be an interesting test because this is like the first time we've really changed up the time. So I wonder if it's gonna be better for people.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Saturday. I mean, it's your Saturday morning when the normal one.
Yeah.
This is and that means Saturday night for us east of you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Sundays are any better for people.
Yeah. I mean, what better way to spend your Saturday night than to come in Discord and listen to the town hall? Yeah.
I don't know. I have a hard time explaining that to friends sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
sorry guys, can't go out tonight. I've got a DAO Discord thing, and they look at me like I've got two heads.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's so true. Oh my god. Yeah, sometimes my friends, and I mean, you can imagine my college friends are like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah, especially for you have to wake up pretty early on Saturday morning, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, my roommate is sleeping in the room next to me, and the walls are paper thin, and he's hungover as heck. So I can't wait to hear him screaming in about an hour about why I was up at 10 a.m. and he's trying to sleep.
Hey, I don't know. I think, I mean, if we're killing a few minutes of time, I don't want to start a thread of conversation, but that premint.xyz, someone sent the link around to the other day.
Yeah.
Did everyone see that? I think that, like, I was actually going to contact you because I've been trying to hack something together like that with a combination of maybe thinking of floats plus Emerald bot, Emerald ID plus, like that thing seems to solve so much of it. I'd love if we built that. I don't know if anyone has any views on that.
Oh yeah. So I was taking a look at this the other day. But I was just so sick that I couldn't really pay attention to what was going on. Hold on a sec. Okay. What? Oh. Yeah, I was so sick I couldn't really pay attention to what was going on. But I looked at it for a second, and yeah, some of it, like a Kelcoin had sent a picture of like some of the stuff that like pointing to some of this stuff, and it looked like we had some of this like in some form already. It looks like it's a bunch of things combined in one, and that's like it'd be really cool if we took like a more in-depth look at this. But I don't really know what this is too much.
I think
well, I mean, sorry, Andre, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's essentially Emerald ID. And again, I'm oversimplifying, but it's Emerald ID with a sign-up list front end, so that people can sign up only if they respect certain filters, right? So you don't get a bunch of fake accounts signing up for drops.
Oh, interesting.
So it would we would. For example, here it has minimum token balance. It has minimum specific NFT membership, Twitter and Discord verification. All things that we could kind of like add to Emerald ID. And then the front end is literally just like a regular old email, or like email probably plus OX address sign up. But yeah, I mean, that's my impression from having looked at it. Dean, you probably know this better, so I'll let you tell us what you were thinking.
No, I think that's exactly it, Andre. And I think it's from someone who's trying to do like whitelisting airdrops, and I think Biotech also commented that he had sort of also somewhat half cobbled together a few of these different things. It's exactly what's needed, because trying to run this stuff manually is so painful, and it's exactly what whitelist kind of functionality is. It's obviously been built for common use cases on Ethereum, and it, like you said, it feels like we have the Emerald ID kind of queries a wallet for an NFT, right? So there's that part of it, and then assigning, I guess assigning someone to a list, you could almost imagine just. You could also assign them a float. So there's a bunch of different kind of things that are close, but just need to be assembled, I think.
That's really cool. Yeah. So what I'm getting is that it sounds like it's basically just like a whitelisting for an NFT drop or something like that.
Yeah, at the core of it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, let's definitely look into this a little bit. Yeah.
It's a little bit more general purpose in the sense. It allows you to, a bit like Emerald ID allows you to make sure that you token gate certain things, right?
Yep.
On Discord. If we were to extend Emerald ID to support, for example, to move beyond just Discord, it would allow anyone to gate access to whatever form of sign-up list. So probably the most popular use case will be NFT drops, but it could be raffles, it could be access to exclusive, events. It could be, even access to academy courses or to, NFT conferences or whatever it is. Like anywhere where you want to make sure that people signing up for things are real people, or at least meet some minimum requirements related to the crypto world, especially for Flow. This would be it. It would kind of allow Emerald ID to break away from just being a Discord verification thing. Not that it only is that, right? Because we know that it does much more than that already. But it would be like a general purpose front end for gating people, regardless of whether they're on Discord or anywhere else, but based on their account information.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, you know me. I get excited about projects in under 20 seconds. So I say we make this our new project. Also, in terms of Emerald ID, yeah, like while Emerald ID is solely used through Discord right now, just the Discord bot's only like a helpful tool to use it. Emerald ID lives completely independently all on chain. So, you know, even the Discord bot, like when you make your Emerald ID, it just sends you a link to a web page. So, like technically the Emerald ID does live like on whatever platform we want it to, which is really good, that it's not restricted to Discord. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
but I think most people live it through Discord right now because that's where it's mainly being used.
Yeah.
But a service like this would kind of be its, let's say, second foray into general purpose identity verification. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it'd be sick.
And we can also connect it with floats. So maybe once we talk about floats, we can talk about that brainstorming thing that we did about, you know, like verified floats and maybe premium Emerald ID levels, stuff like that.
Yep.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So with that segue, I guess we can start the town hall. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. We got a lot of people here. BG says, "Do we get a float for joining today? I only came for floats." Yeah, that's funny. So I actually totally should have done that. I'm an idiot for doing that. I don't know why I didn't start a float event, but you know what? I will do that at the end of the session and give it out to everybody, and it'll only take like 5 seconds. But yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna say up front that this town hall, while it doesn't have like a ton of slides, is jam-packed with information because so much has happened in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, let's get started. So I kind of want to change up the format a little bit. Usually we go building, governance, education, but I figured I would go in like the more natural order: education, building, and then governance at the end. Because a lot of people here might be interested only because of the Emerald Academy. So I'm going to sort of tie that in at the beginning. So yeah, one of the biggest things that's happened in the last 2 weeks is Emerald Academy. So if anyone is joining this town hall thinking like specifically about Emerald Academy, I want to welcome you to Emerald City DAO as a whole. The Emerald Academy is only like one part of what we're doing here at Emerald City. And it's a very new thing that actually sparked like in the last, I don't know, week or so. So I guess like what is Emerald Academy? Well, it's as it says on the webpage, it's a series of flow educational resources throughout time. So this is, you know, you can think of it as like boot camps, tutorials, hackathons, etc. Of course, right now the boot camp, you know, we have a boot camp #1 coming up, literally tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. And we have a lot of interest around this boot camp because it's an introduction to, you know, flow, cadence, and even the blockchain in general. So Emerald Academy is live at academy.emeralddao.city. So if we even go to this page, you'll see it does a cool, slick little animation that I'm really proud of. And then it just says like, you know, learn everything about the flow blockchain and cadence made by your best friends at Emerald City. I love that tagline, actually. And then you could see, you know, if you were to click on either one of these, this link right here would bring you to the Emerald City DAO, whereas this one would specifically bring you to the announcements category under the Emerald Academy in this Discord. So yeah, that's just a brief introduction of Emerald Academy. And like I said, if you are joining and you found out about Emerald City through Emerald Academy, I really encourage you to explore a lot of the other things we're doing, a lot of which I'm going to mention in the next, you know, 45 minutes or so. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved, and I kind of want to go over that now. So, well, first of all, you know, what is bootcamp #1? So I touched on this a little bit a couple of seconds ago, but it's the first bootcamp inside of Emerald Academy. So it's an introduction to the blockchain, flow, and cadence. And there are no prerequisites required except for, you know, some basic computer science fundamentals like what's a function, what's a variable. So I had a lot of people ask me, well, what if I don't know how to code at all? I have never coded before. That's sort of a difficult question to ask, like with any sort of course that you enroll in. A lot of like at least these introduction to like specific language courses often do like have some sort of like fundamentals as a requirement. But if you do want to get involved in the coding space, I really encourage you to look up like even like Codecademy has some good, like just very basic intro to programming. And I've been thinking of, you know, maybe even adding like a little like chapter -1 to the bootcamp that goes over like what like those basic, you know, variables and functions are, to help people sort of get involved in the coding space. Because one of the things I think is very unique to the blockchain world is you have this like merging of content creators, developers, and artists, that I haven't really seen before. Of course, I'm only 20. I'm talking like I'm like a 70-year-old wizard. But, you know, there is this like merging of a lot of different interests, in the blockchain space. And I think that it'd be cool to not only encourage people to get into cadence and flow, but to get into developing in general. So that's just one personal goal I have. But notice that this bootcamp is an introduction to the blockchain. So if you know literally nothing about the blockchain, but you've, you know, written a few lines of code in your life, then I think this bootcamp is perfect for you. And like I said, I might even add like a chapter -1 to sort of like go over like what is coding, if that's helpful. So how can I join? Join the Emerald City Discord. So for all of you listening to this right now, you're already here, so you've already done it. And watch the announcements channel under the Emerald Academy category on the left. So right now we're all in the town hall, but if you scroll down to the you know, announcements channel, that's where I'm going to be releasing all the, you know, fun stuff about Emerald Academy. And I'm going to release another message today that just says like, hey, we're 1 day away, like welcome. All right. So cool. Yeah, let me go back to this. Okay, cool. So just some educational updates on my side. So the Flow Zero to Jacob course that you all know and love is now actually being used for bootcamp #1 inside of Emerald Academy. So 3 entire new chapters have been added. So if you've just been doing this course like on the side and not doing it for the academy, then, you know, that's for you. And also like on the YouTube end, since I know a lot of people use this to sort of get introduced to cadence, I sort of segmented things out where there's now like a specific cadence series. There's also like a DApp series, you know, FCL.js if you use JavaScript, and also a crypto library one that handles like account keys and public keys and all that jazz. So now we're on to the building guild. So I always pause for just a few seconds in case anyone wants to say anything about what we just covered. And I do want to mention, I know Bjartek's on vacation right now. I wish he could be here with us, but we already have plans for after this bootcamp is over. We're thinking about doing like maybe, like I'd say, because this is a lot of effort, but we're thinking about maybe doing this bootcamp, like this bootcamp structure, like maybe once every like month and a half or 2 months, because this bootcamp itself will be like 3 weeks long. And we're thinking that the next boot camp that we actually release will be an entire boot camp on the metadata standard. So that will be like a week-long sort of like, you know, boot camp. Like, why do we need the metadata standard and what is it? Which I think would be really cool. Oh, and also I do want to mention that one cool thing about this boot camp and like boot camps that Emerald City will produce is that they have like a quest structure associated with them. So for those of you that did Fast Forward with me, that was a boot camp I ran about, you know, 2 months ago with Decentology. For those of you that did that and loved it, BZ, I'm winking at you. We will have those sort of like quest structure again that I know people really liked. So whenever you you know, read through the content, you will be able to sort of like do the quests, and then you can submit them inside the quest submissions channel underneath the Emerald Academy category. And I will personally review all of your quests, or not, maybe not personally, but some member of the educational guild will be reviewing your stuff. So that's just want to point that out there. Oh, and I can't believe I almost forgot, but everyone who completes this first bootcamp will receive the first ever float on mainnet. So I just wanted to sort of, you know, give people like a sort of like incentive tool to get started if you were like, you know, maybe not wanting to get started. But yeah, so the first ever float on mainnet will be given to you if you complete this bootcamp. All right. So I'm reading the chat here. Support Monkey says this could be a quest for the next bootcamp. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's so let's just release a new bootcamp, and then the sole quest is to code that up, and then we'll just take all the profit. No, I'm kidding. But it would be really cool if we sort of tackle this as a group. You'll see I actually commented under that post like, ooh, maybe we could do this. Yeah, no, for real. Like I think it would be really cool if we did this. Of course, I think it definitely requires a significant amount of effort. But yeah, we could look into that.
Could I also add something around education, or is that going to be a separate discussion?
Oh no, go ahead.
So regarding education, first of all, super excited about Emerald Academy. I think it's fantastic, and we definitely need a resource like this. So I'm definitely signing up, mainly because I want that float, but also because I want to definitely experience it, and maybe see how we can make it as self-service as possible. Not that it isn't already self-service, but make it as self-service as possible, so it's not always you that has to, for example, in the future, run it, right?
Yeah.
But we can start having academy leaders who can run these academies, maybe around the world. And the reason I say this is, if we can set this up to be scalable, I'm sure, like on the Dapper side, I could definitely make a case for getting some resources, some bounties, which also connects to what Support Monkey was mentioning, right? Which is, we can, one of Emerald's priorities is making sure that there's good flow and cadence education. The flow team also has that priority. So if we can work together, I'm sure that there's support coming from Dapper, right?
Yep.
So I just want to flag this. I just want everyone to think like, okay, how can we scale this into a global program, so that it can go beyond just a hand-run workshop and more into maybe like a regular occurrence, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. There's a boot camp that people can join, knowing that there can be resources put behind it to support this. So I just wanted to make that known.
To pop into, and this is because it's too many words for text. This could be very similar to like hairstyling schools here in the United States, where lots of people they actually go to a school where they do hairstyling, and you can go and get your hair cut there, and it's generally cheaper than going to a regular salon, because people are learning. People who do these kinds of boot camps that are linked back to bounties, you can basically kind of create a loop that helps fund EC and then also pays developers as they're learning. Like, hey, you're not going to make as much while you're learning, but if you help us fulfill this thing, you get reputation, and then reputation at some point will have will be remunerated in some specific manner that we haven't got to yet.
Exactly. I love that analogy of like the hairdresser schools. I actually went to one of those ones. It was pretty cool.
Really?
But scary at the same time, because no, but I totally agree. Sorry,
I was just going to say that, actually just kind of bringing this a little bit full circle back to the sort of bomb that I dropped into the chat before we started around this this sort of whitelisting sort of identity tool. Like, if that was, I'm just putting it out there, like if that was one of the sort of quests that at the end of it, like at the end of bootcamp 1 or 2 or whatever, that we had that tool like we have floats and others, like, man, I'd like Genius, like we'd put up, money for that, like, and I'm sure others would too, because otherwise, like, either we have to build it ourselves, or we have to go and kind of hope and just wait for someone to find a gap in the market, or to realize the gap in the market and build it. So I'm just putting my hands up, saying whether it's us or Dapper or others, like if I don't know what the decision would be to say it's that versus anything else that is deemed to be important, but there's money. My hand's going to my pocket to like pull out money if someone builds this.
So it sounds like all of you are talking about sort of like I mean, it would be helpful for all of you to, I guess, explain or reiterate why like this would be helpful at like the end of a boot camp, sort of like a quest. But it sounds like to me it's almost like a pool that people can contribute to or donate to in order for Emerald City to like build tooling, which is like a fundamental and core like goal of Emerald City. That's sort of what we're founded on, is to build tooling and products for other people. So if this is something that like even the 3 of you are saying like, hey, I can immediately see the benefit in this, I mean, that's like the green flag for Emerald City to go ahead and do it.
Right.
It's the same business model as the Open Compute project. Like to bring it back from hairstylist to something closer to what y'all are doing. The Open Compute project has that's for much larger scale investment, but there's no reason you couldn't mirror that, where you have a pool and it pays out developers, and you just need to have a framework so that people know how projects are accepted, how developers can apply to work on those projects, just the
Yeah.
legalese shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. And what we could do, I guess, is what you guys are, suggesting is like at the end of these boot camps, we sort of provide this as almost not like maybe not like a quest, because it wouldn't be just like a you have to do this now, or like you're not going to complete the boot camp, but almost like a pathway to say like, hey, if you have made it this far, maybe you would be interested in contributing here. But that sort of like ties into like a larger idea that like we basically just seen like a pathway for people to like be like, I want to contribute to Emerald City, and then like this is what's available, and like I feel like I can contribute here. Is that right?
Yeah, and I actually think there's two different sides to this. So what Dean is mentioning and what Support Monkey is mentioning, if I understood correctly, right, is like let's make the quests and what people do after they learn useful, right? So that it actually helps build tools for the ecosystem.
Yep.
And that's where products or businesses that are building on Flow are going to be incentivized to put bounties up, because the hairstylists, right, the trainees on Flow will definitely be able to build stuff for them at a cheaper bounty than hiring a professional agency. But at the same time, and this is like let's say the end, like one side of the platform. Yet the starting side of the platform is, how do we fund Emerald itself, right?
Yep.
So on the one hand, for example, and then again, I'm just speaking hypothetically. I'm not saying that like we have to do this, but like the work that the Emerald DAO itself does to facilitate these types of boot camps would be worthy of like a Flow grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that incentivizes the DAO itself to continue to do this. And then we have bounties set up by companies or projects or whoever that wants something built, and that's the incentive for the learners. So there's like two sides funding for two different reasons. Of course, these two types of funds can go into both pools, but it's not just about the bounties. It's also about like just supporting the hard work that goes on behind facilitating all of this, because it's not just about saying, oh, I want an NFT analytics public resources thing built, and people will do it, right? There's a lot of management, there's a lot of coordination, a lot of facilitation, a lot of people spending a lot of time working, responding to Discord messages. Just think of yourself, Jacob, how much time you spend running this bootcamp, and maybe you can use this first iteration as a way to measure how much effort goes into it, how much time goes into it, to kind of come up with, okay, running a bootcamp is this expensive in terms of time, in terms of hours. So there's opportunities on both sides. Sorry.
Yeah, so it sounds like thank you, Andrea, for that, by the way. Yeah, so it sounds like basically, just to reiterate what you were saying, that Emerald City DAO itself would sort of like be funded through maybe like a Flow grant or Dapper grant or someone that like is incentivizing education and like something like that on Flow.
Yeah.
Whereas, on the other end, it's like Emerald City sort of has this pathway for like newbie developers, not newbie, but like beginner people that are learning to then take what they've learned and like have sort of a pathway to contribute to actual tooling through some bounty program that other people are setting up, like FlowScan in this case, or Dean, or whoever it may be. So I liked it a lot, and the reason I like this also is because I think that this isn't like a huge problem in the Flow space because it hasn't happened a lot. But one of the issues that I saw with the Flip Fest a few months ago. So for those of you who don't know, the Flip Fest was sort of like a period of time where like the Flow team was giving like I guess like bounties to people who were like some Andre, you might be able to explain it better than me, but it was basically like the Flow team was submitting bounties to people who were taking on some tasks in the Flow space and who were like doing some, I don't even know like what the specific tasks were, but I know for one example that Phil, who's Phil is usually comes to these town halls, but I don't see him here today. But he's also a community lead at Flow, and he was sort of talking about the problem was that like when the Flow team or someone releases a bounty to do something, there's no like organized way to actually handle people taking on those tasks, because you have someone living in London, you have someone living in the US, and they have no idea who they are. They don't know who each other is. and so they don't like know how to collaborate. So they both take on the task independently for the same bounty. They both put in a tremendous amount of work, and then at the end of the day, whoever submits the actual like winning, I guess like winning idea is the one that gets the bounty, whereas the other people don't really get paid. And so Phil actually mentioned that problem when he was doing FlipFest, because he was working on a project that's 5 other people were also working on, and not all of them were sort of rewarded for that. So if we can come up with a system where people know what's going on and know how to contribute, I think that would be a really good thing for the ecosystem as a whole. Because, for example, with this flow scan thing right now, like I could be totally off about this, but it's like, okay, we see this tweet, this is $20,000 USD development bounty, but like, what does that mean? Like for all I know, someone could be halfway done with it right now. Like, could have spent all night working on it, and I could go ahead and promote this for Emerald City and have no idea that someone's already basically done with it. So I think it would be helpful to have a more structured way of giving people like access to these bounties.
What I would say is that that's where hyperverse in my mind kind of comes in, because the bounty is the directionality that we have to arbitrarily choose, and we say, okay, this is a signal that the market wants this thing because somebody just put up 20K for it. But as the tools are being made, regardless of whether or not they get used by the person who's put up the bounty, if you create them with the hyperverse modularity for paying out people who use them, and then you submit them for the bounty, but you also put them up for other randos to find. Because like if you look in the Ethereum development space, it's 90% people copying what like 5% of the developers are actually producing.
Mm.
So no matter what, there should be a way to monetize, or at least allow for the market to select amongst the developers at EC who is creating code that's useful or good, like in theory.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I also think a lot of this ties into like the building reputation too, because if we have people like constantly contributing to these bounties and so on, they'll be, building up, building reputation. And, that sort of is like a indicator that, these people are interested in taking up this bounty, and we can point to them if needed.
Well, I mean, then that becomes now you're recreating the Fiverr structure, and it becomes I think that even that's something that might be worth exploring while you're building out this initial structure. Like maybe sometimes it's literally the bounty gets fulfilled, and if it gets fulfilled, whomever's code was involved and whoever was involved in the production of it gets some cut. Or maybe it's just tools that get put up on the marketplace, or insert way that value comes back to EC. If EC licenses this person and says, hey, this guy is validated as a coder, they've gone through our boot camp, we have taught them and trained them.
Yeah.
Nominally, EC in the regular world would get some kind of cut from that, either directly from the employer who hired the person or from the person who paid EC to go through the program. Like those are the two ways that money normally flows in those systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna that's all great thoughts. I'm gonna move on to the building guild now, but I really want to keep this in mind. So when we sort of conclude this town hall, let's come back to this like flow scan bounty. All right. So building guild, yay, we're here. Number one, of course, everyone's fan favorite. Float. So I'm sort of gonna walk through like a 3 to 4 minute demo of like what float is, because I'm sure a lot of you already know. But float is basically like a POAP, proof of participation system for the flow ecosystem. So if you've heard of POAPs on Ethereum, its most common use case is probably Twitter hosts giving out like POAPs for attending an event, or Discord meetings giving POAPs for attending like Discord calls. I know that one other DAO on Ethereum, Developer DAO, they use POAPs all the time for people attending their town halls. Stuff like that. It can really be used however you want. If you're an event host, you can give people, a float for attending. And I guess BZ had a good idea. We'll give people floats for attending this one. The only disclaimer is that right now all the floats are on testnet. So none of these floats will, they will be here forever, but they won't like technically, because we're going to move to mainnet soon. But here's what you can do with float. So, you know, this is the main page. You can search for people's events by, you can search for people's events by looking up an address right here. So if we were to look up this address, for example, I wonder if this has anything in it. You can see it does. So this address, this is an account. They have some claimed floats here. So these are like tokens that they attended some event. And these are the events that they have created themselves. So this was, I think this is my account. I was just screwing around with float at the beginning. But we can even click on this one. So let's click on this float right here. You can see that this is owned by me, and here's the event right here. And we can even go to the event itself. You know, this is BQL's event. I don't know. I just claimed this from somebody. It has like a certain number. It says when it was created on. And then, you know, you can claim it however you want. If I was logged in here, and it even shows like a list of who has claimed this float and everything like that. So, huge props to Andrea for basically coding out all this front end stuff, and it looks fantastic. And there will be many more improvements to this on mainnet, because you know, we added a ton of cool stuff to that. I don't want to spend too much time on float. I could talk about this for literally forever. But yeah, so this is basically what float looks like. And I think the most important part to all of you is probably creating an event. So why don't we go ahead and create a new float? I'm going to call it like Town Hall number 5. The event URL, I'm just going to link to like our Discord. So discord.gg/Emerald City. And the event description, I'm going to name it like for attending Town Hall number 5 on February 21st, right? Is it February 21st? Yep. Okay. Oh, no, February 20th. Oops. So February 20th. Okay. 2022. And then we can name, let's do the event image. Let's just do like Emerald. Let's just do the Emerald Academy logo. Because whatever, it'll be cool. And that was like one of the main things today. Oh, I have to make sure I connect my wallet, right? So let me go ahead and connect my wallet. Okay. And you know, you can even select some like, you know, basic like information here. Like, can it be transferred between people? So I'm going to say no, because I don't want all of you to transfer to each other. It's claimable, of course. You know, let's just put unlimited quantity. The time limit. So I'm going to start it right now, actually. And I'm going to say, you know what, you can no longer claim it in like a day, right? So we'll just give people a day. And the secret code I'm going to use is, let's just say, actually, I'm not going to do a secret code because that'll complicate things, but actually, you know what, I will. Yeah, I'm going to do it. So the secret code is going to be it's on, because that's what Andrea just typed. And we're going to, you know, I think this should be good. So non-transferable, claimable, unlimited quantity. Here's the time limit. That should be all good to go. And then use claim code it's on. So this exact one. All right. And if we go ahead, oh, and also what's cool is that it shows you a preview of what the float looks like up here. So you know you're creating the right one. Or you know that you're creating one that looks like decent, right? So let's go ahead and create this float. It's going to come up with this little transaction status thing. And if we approve here, it should go through for a bit. Pending. And I think float testnet should actually be pretty quick. So this should go through in like even a few seconds. Yeah, so it's almost done here. And then if we, you know, it says sealed. So event created successfully. And if we go to the event, you know, we can actually scroll down and look. Oh, here's Town Hall number 5. I love how small this logo was reserved. I don't know why it was that small. We can visit it. And yeah, so if I send this in the chat now, so for all of you that are here, if you go ahead and actually go to that link, you'll be able to claim the float for attending this town hall. So you can see here, you know, it says the name here. We can even click this link and it would take us to the Discord. That's the link I typed in. You see 0 people have minted for attending town hall number 5. And as the event host, this is also cool. So you guys won't be able to see this, but I can, because I'm looking at it right now. So I can pause claiming, so I can stop you all from claiming. I can allow you to transfer it back and forth if I want. And I can also delete this event, but I won't be able to in about yeah, so I can't anymore because some of you already minted. But I'm going to go ahead and mint one for myself. So GG's to whoever got 0-0. You're lucky. Approve. And yeah, so 4 you already have it, which is pretty sick. Yeah, and I can even see which you claimed it. So which you sneaky rats already. Andre, I got number 1. Nice. Yeah, so I can see who was the sneak that got number 0. Oh, it's
Calcoin. I forgot to log in, so I had to connect the wallet first. Damn it. What a noob.
Andre, I think it's so funny because every time we do one of these, you always end up with not the 0 with 1, even though you try so hard to get it. It's so funny. Uh, oh, look at that. So we got you three got the first three. Look at you, slick. Nice. I'm all the way down here at what? What did I get? Oh, and then yeah. So when you claim it, it says you have claimed this float. Oh, look, I got number 4. Nice. Who got number 3? Who's in the middle? Who's sandwiched in the middle here?
Actually, Jacob, you could actually show the live page.
Oh yeah, I should have done that. Oh, I'm an idiot. No. Please tell me people are still claiming. This would be so fun.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, look.
I love how it looks like that because the image is messed up, but yeah, so look, so this is a live page where we can actually see people claiming the floats in live time. So yeah, the code is it's on. But yeah, so look, this is someone claiming it right now. So look, boom, claimed it right now. So isn't this so cool? I don't know why, but this is so cool to me. This is so cool to me. So like if Genius, for example, did an event, so what I really like about this is that it allows people like in a very fun way to see what's going on in like the Flowverse, right? Because if Genius was doing an event right now and he made the event image be like a picture of Genius, I could go on here and be like, oh my god, Genius is having an event, like a lot of people are claiming, and then I could go and look and like be like, oh, where I want to look into them now, and then I can of course go to their like web page, whatever, and see if they're having a town hall. So yeah, that's why I think it's really cool. And
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to have a float get auto minted based on like an emission from a phone? Like if somebody pre-approved and said, "Hey, my phone's allowed to transmit on this, when I get to place X, geolocation X, I get a float just for bringing my phone to this location." Is that doable?
Theoretically, yes. It would probably be really technically complicated. Yeah, I mean, I'll have it ready for you tomorrow morning. I'm just kidding. But I mean, yes, I guess it is like if so let's say I'm the event host, right? I make it like not claimable, right? So that means that only I'm allowed to distribute it. So if I set up some application where if someone enters a geolocation and sends me proof of that, then I mint them a float. Yeah, that's definitely possible. I just don't know how to code that. Yeah.
Cool. I don't know why it just popped into my head. I'm sorry. It just did.
No, it's cool. I mean, the more use cases, the better, right? Oh, also, I want to mention, so the TA Fools, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I know you asked a question earlier about what I think is better, but in Cadence and Solidity. I'm actually going to leave that question to the boot camp because I go really in depth inside the boot camp about why I think Cadence is better than Solidity in a lot of ways. So I'm going to leave it to that. I think it'll be cool to read that in the boot camp. Got the number 8 and my birthday was in 8th February. Crazy. Nice, generous kid. And thank you, Mako Lackey. Yeah, so like I said, this is sort of all a test, so don't be like freaking out when all this goes away in 2 weeks, but yeah. Jacob might be biased. I might just be, BZ. I might just be. Solidity sucks. All right. So yeah, so that's floats for you. And I just create an event. Any of you can go and create an event if you want. So yeah. Cool. That's float. All right. So let's go ahead to the next one. So Emerald City website. Woohoo. So domain name has been purchased. So emeralddao.city. It's not yet live. But whatever we have for the website will go at emeralddao.city. We're trying to get emerald.city. But it's basically, if we go to it, we could, I mean, they're not as cool as us. Let's like look at their UI, right? Andrea didn't code this with Pico CSS. It looks terrible. It's like some random things here. The color scheme is god awful. I mean, look at this. You go to floats.city, wow, like crystal clear. And then you go to this, and it makes you want to throw up. But anyway, enough of that. It's basically it's a Russian website. So we actually recruited some Russian-speaking Emerald City members to find out how to contact them, and they couldn't figure it out. So I don't really know how we could do that. We had like the Russian Power Ranger squad try and figure out how to contact them, but they couldn't figure it out. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. but hopefully we can steal this domain from under their feet. If you need, that'd be amazing. So for any of you, yeah, so that would be really helpful. If you could somehow figure out, I mean, it's kind of like a large ask, but if there's any way we could figure out how to like get this from them and steal it, that would be awesome. So it's emerald.city, which I think would be like literally a perfect domain for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be the perfect domain because I don't know. Sorry, I kind of zoned out for a second. I don't know if you mentioned that the goal was to have every other domain be .city as well.
Yes. So I'm so happy you brought that up, Andrea, and I'm so happy Dean is here. So this is something that I really wanted to talk about as a group. So Dean made a really in-depth argument about why everything should be subdomains, meaning like float/emerald. Okay, so let's talk in terms of it's just emerald. Let's assume we have emerald.city. We had some argument for like making it float .emerald.city. In the same way that Google does like docs.google.com, and slides and all that. And then we had Andrea and some others talking about why we thought each thing should be lived like almost independently, like floats.city. And so I just wanted to bring that up and sort of like have this discussion as a group to see what people thought.
Yeah, look, maybe I'll just start because I was the one who threw the cat amongst the pigeons. Look, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. I don't think it's one of those things that like needs endless debate. Like, and I'm sorry if it kind of is sort of.
Oh, not at all.
I mean, I guess the consensus seems to be use separate domains, which I do see the kind of angle on that. I think maybe the better way of looking at this through is the lens of like, what are these other domains that we're going to be requiring, and do they, if it's something like, floats as a POAP system, you feel that lives on its own, it doesn't need to be related back to EC, then that's cool. Then it makes sense to be on its own domain. I think my starting point of thinking was just, if we do want recognition for Emerald City, the best way of doing that is to all hang off one domain and one website, even if it's separate physical infrastructure where it's different like hosts and infrastructure behind it. It still looks like it's coming from one Emerald City brand. Because I guess you just pulled up floats.city, right? What happens when the next tool we can't get the .city domain?
Yeah, it's so difficult for Andre. I'm gonna let you go in a second. It's so difficult for me to like take a stand here because I see the value in both sides, so I'm totally at a loss. But Andrea, if you want to talk a little bit, that'd be great too.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just my personal view. So, Dean, I actually completely agree that keeping things under the same domain is ideal. Actually, it was only specific to floats.city that I think it warrants its own domain. Not that it also doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Like the main homepage, or we could definitely have a floats.emerald.city subdomain. But the reason why I was keen to have a floats.city is that it's a shorter URL to share around. It's people don't need to learn about Emerald DAO to use floats. And, it'll be a bit like poap.xyz, which is like this own little thing that exists in the Flow universe that people can use. And if they want to dive deeper into Emerald, then they can. And we can definitely have a, float subdomain that goes into more, the DAO implications of floats, or is more of the institutional side. But floats.city still has a little nod to Emerald through the GTLD, like the top level domain. But it's short and like easy to remember, easy to share. That's my thinking, at least. But I'm also not super. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on. So I'm happy to do whatever anyone thinks is best, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I think. Sorry, Jake.
No, you go, Dean. You go.
One last point. I think we're kind of maybe Andrea. I think we're pretty much of the same mindset, which is definitely not a hill that anyone needs to die on. But because I really like emerald.city as a domain if we can get it. because that one's super short and easy to remember, and it's bang on, our brand, right? So if you shared anything, like go to emerald.city, and then this comes back to this is somewhat on me, who is slow and also slightly confused by this discussion, but if you went to emerald.city and there was a big button on the homepage, floats, bot, whatever, you almost don't need to know the subdomain or the individual domain for it, right? So that would be my counter, is just if we do get the right top level domain, to some extent, that can be the sort of landing point for everything and everything. But I do take the point that, if we want to create its own identity that is not so closely linked to Emerald City, just has a small powered by, or, as you've got there, service by Emerald City, then that's the bigger decision. It's not so much about which domain and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, a few things I do want to say. Yeah, so first of all, we could definitely do some trickery where this is just an idea, but if someone goes to float.emerald.city, it redirects them to here, right? So that's number one. Number two is, this is just a random idea that popped into my head, but if someone in all the tooling that we build, there will be some about page. This about page could redirect them to float.emerald.city instead of /about. Because that could sort of bring them to well, what is float and why is it in Emerald City? So we could do some pattern like that. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. And I had another idea and I completely forgot it, which, oh god, I hate. I had another idea, but I'm now completely blanking, so that sucks. Yeah, shoot. And it was a really good idea too. I was gonna blow everyone's minds with it. Oh, no, it wasn't that cool. Now that I'm remembering it. So, but Dean, you were mentioning that on the Emerald City homepage, having a button that's floats or bot. That's exactly what I'm picturing as well. And I don't think having subdomains is a requirement for that. Because I think it would be really cool, on the Emerald City page, you have a big button that's we did floats and we did bot and we did all these things, so that when it's a million different things, it's wow, Emerald City is a bunch of legends, and of course we are. So I think that's a really cool thing to have, whether or not we have subdomains. So I totally agree with you there.
Okay, well, look, maybe there's, just in the interest of time today, we keep doing what we're doing with the subdomain, with the unique domains for the tools like floats.city. And we just, like I said, the only thing I hope is we don't run into a .city domain we can't get.
Yeah, yeah.
For a future tool, we don't know yet how it's going to be named, but maybe we can kind of, be creative with naming.
Yeah.
But I think it would be super cool to get. The one thing I'm not a huge fan of the domain personally that is it emeralddow.city. It's kind of we're mixing the order of the terms up.
Yeah.
So if we get emerald.city, that's super cool, and we can do all those things you just mentioned, like subdomain redirects and big buttons on the front and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But so I don't know, maybe that's a way of moving forward today. And the only other thing I was going to say, just I think probably to Andrea, if you can send me the color coding that you use, the hex values of those two main colors, because I'm a little bit out of sync with the website development now for that page. That's not a plain black background. And the green that you've used, I'm not sure it's the same one I'm using even on the logos.
That green should be the one that's on the docs site. There's the Git book of Emerald City, and there was a couple standard hex codes there. The dark background is specific to Pico CSS, and I can definitely send you the hex code for that.
Cool, thanks. Then I'll just make sure that the main landing web page matches that, and I'll also start to put the links to these, like Jacob, like you're saying, these big buttons to these tools more prominently. Because I think what's happened is these designs now need to be updated to maybe be more reflective of what's been achieved and the academy and floats and etc.
Yeah, I feel so bad, Dean, because it's literally we spent 2 weeks in the next town hall. It's all right, we solved the world, and it's all right, well, now we have to update everything. It's just so much happening.
Totally my fault for being slow. I should be quicker on. I'll try and keep pace with what's being developed, and so that because that's on me.
No, it's totally fine. I know you got so much going on as well. So yeah, and I agree with Dean. Yeah, so Emerald DAO is sort of like a hacky thing right now that we have going on. But yeah, I mean, whoever speaks Russian, it'd be great if we could just steal the Emerald City domain.
I know
Who's
it's
doing?
Russians, but when I actually looked it up, it appears that it might be from Peru.
Really?
When you when I went on there to their, so everyone's got to have a privacy policy, and in your privacy policy you have to have certain information. I got their RUC number, and I googled their RUC number, and that comes up with something in fucking Peru. It ain't Russian, it's like Spanish.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
that's interesting. Huh. That's very interesting.
Though,
Out of
and
interest.
there's ayahuasca too. So like that's not like culturally that's not Russian.
Oh, it's very interesting. I mean, that's very interesting, huh? Didn't even know
Who's
that.
doing the Russian outreach for us?
I think it was, if I can go back to the building chat, who was it? Shoot. I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody that was doing it.
I see 2 people on a call right now who I know speak Russian. 3 actually.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's Russian. And they canceled their activities on the website. So the company that owned that website ceased activities on the 31st of January 2020. They no longer exist as a company, at least according to this page.
So does anyone have experience with the processes for like taking a domain then? I'm assuming like this can't just live forever if it's dead, right?
Well, the domain is separate from the company. Like that goes through like its own registration process. So as long as they keep renewing it, it's going to stay under ownership.
Ugh.
But if
Do we
they
know
stop
who the
renewing
domain-
it, then there's going to be a grace period, and it's going to be.
Who's the domain registrar for that domain? Do we know?
I can figure that out.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh shoot. Okay, I'm realizing. Yeah, so it is already 10:54. All right, so I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm gonna move on to the governance guild because we do have sort of like a big thing to talk about there as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can always circle back to this. So yeah, so governance guild. So this is the last sort of category. As you all know, three guilds. So yeah, so there's a big sort of topic that I just wanted to introduce this week. But Emerald Token, yes, Emerald Token is officially upon us. So what is Emerald? Let me explain first why I'm bringing this up. The reason I'm bringing this up is because every single town hall, and every single time that we sort of like are thinking about a new product, the reputation system and Emerald Token are always so closely linked to like what we're talking about. And in addition to that, I have met with a ton of people, both like Flow side, Dapper side, like Flow project side, other DAOs on Flow, that are very, very interested in like providing some sort of like funding to Emerald City to help us get going. But there's no like native DAO way to do that. And you know, right now it's just like, well, you can just submit FUSD to like our address if you want, but that's not like that official, and it feels weird. And I think it's also worth like, as we actually start producing like, you know, really amazing things like Float, for example, it's really important that we have some like internal way inside Emerald City to reward people and, you know, get some sort of like process going. So that's why I think I want to introduce Emerald Token a little bit, so that we can just start thinking about it. I'm not saying that Emerald Token is going to be like released tomorrow and token sales out, but I think it's definitely worth having this conversation, especially because one other thing I want to talk about is that like I really want to start cracking down on that reputation system again. You know, as many of you know that have been here for like a month or so, or even 2 months now, the reputation system was something that we spent a ton of time talking about, and then it sort of got put aside as we do Emerald Academy of Float, which is totally fine. It means that people are very like motivated and interested in getting things out there. But I do think it's time to sort of like narrow in on how we can sort of set up that process for helping people contribute and get paid for it. So what is Emerald Token? Well, it's a fungible token on Flow, native to Emerald City DAO. It will serve many purposes. So reward contributors in the DAO, tie into voting power, others to be decided. So I'm seeing in the chat, so a lot of people, so seems like they still keep, Yeah, that sucks. That stinks. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so like Emerald Token is really just like, you know, when you think about it, like even though it's like a DAO token, it is just like a normal token, just like Flow Token or anything like that. Or it will be. I should have said what will be Emerald Token. And what can you do with Emerald Token when it's out? Well, a few things. So use it to help give you voting power in the Emerald City DAO. So of course, right now in Emerald City, a lot of what we do, it does not go to a formal vote, and that's because there is sort of like a core team of people that are constantly working on things. We don't have like hundreds and hundreds, or even like nowhere near like thousands of people constantly contributing. So it doesn't make sense to have formal voting structures out because that would only slow down the processes of things. And we all tend to collectively agree on things anyway. And of course, the guild leader structure that we've been working with has actually worked really well. So we're going to keep sticking with that until we grow to a scale where voting is necessary. So yeah. The second thing is, well, you'll be able to swap it on block to swap to get Flow Token or FUSD. So those two will be supported initially. So I've talked a lot with Swan, who is the like lead at Blockto. So he runs everything at Blockto. It actually helped me a lot when I was learning Cadence. But I have gone back and forth with him over email quite a bit, and he said that if we do code out Emerald Token and like a swap pair, he will put it on block to swap, which I think is really, really, really cool for us. Because right now, block to swap. So for those of you that aren't too familiar with this type of thing, let's actually go to block to swap together, so I can show you what it is. So block to swap right now, this is on mainnet. Block to swap basically allows you to swap token pairs. So if I have Flow, right, and I want to swap it to, you know, Blockto token, I could swap it right now if I wanted to. And I could take my Flow and make it into Blockto, right? What you will be able to do the same thing with Emerald Token. So if you build Float, or you build, or you help an Emerald Academy, or you do something for the DAO, you will be able to take your Emerald, we'll just call it Emerald, and you'll be able to swap it for Flow Token if you want, so that it holds real value. So that's sort of the point of it. So you will be able to directly take your Emerald Token and swap it if you'd like to, or you could hold on to Emerald Token, and who knows, maybe it will be more valuable. Maybe we'll just take over the world. No one knows. You know, maybe the next Bitcoin. Say what? Yeah. So the third point here is to use it as a currency of exchange within Emerald City DAO and whoever else supports it. So there is sort of like, you know, the chance that, you know, other DAOs even support Emerald Token, or we have swap pairs, you know, between other DAO tokens and ours. So yeah, so there will be some things you can do with Emerald Token just from like a monetary standpoint. So has Blockto CEO said anything about staking Emerald City? About staking Emerald City support? Oh no, so I haven't gone that far with him yet, but I'm sure that will be a topic once we actually have the token out there. And just like sort of as, you know, to go off of this a little bit, so I actually have written the contract for the Emerald City token, and I have written the contract for the swap pair between Emerald Token and Flow Token. So both of those are fully developed now. Those weren't that hard to write because like many of these tokens, like contracts already exist. It's just a matter of like name changing. But one thing that we do need to sort of look into is like actual like tokenomics. Now this is something I have absolutely zero knowledge on. So while I would like to contribute a lot and will do the absolute most I can, we need to look for outside help here, because I don't know anything about this. And what I mean by that is like figuring out like a total supply, figuring out like initial liquidity, you know, exactly, tokenomics. Yeah, so it's a definitely a complex category, and there's people that are much smarter than me in this field. So if any of you know anyone that would be, you know, interested in like helping out or helping us figure out like what to do, that would be great. I'm meeting with Chase on tomorrow actually to sort of go over like an initial tokenomic strategy. So yeah, so that this is just to say this is coming up. And by all means, whoever has any insight, like please, definitely reach out.
This is where certain seed funds, like the simplest thing to say is no matter what, you have to have capital that underpins your initial coins.
Yeah.
That has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Either, yeah. At the end of the day, that flow pair contract, someone's got to provide the other side of the pair.
Oh yeah.
The initial other side of the pair.
Yep. So that is definitely true. And yeah, so a lot of part of the reason that I'm sort of like talking about this as well is because we've had like countless projects come to us and say like, hey, like, can we like, invest in a token, or can we like do something like that? And I always am like, no, not yet. And so this is like sort of coming out of like I wouldn't be saying this if we didn't have people interested in like, providing some initial liquidity. But it's also not a promise, right? So like we would need to reach out and be like, hey, like, is anyone interested? Like, we need to sort of scope this out a little bit, but I do think it's helpful just to sort of bring this up.
It's where a product, like, that is the way that we solved that problem for us in terms of generating the liquidity for our own internal token for paying artists and shit. Is you have to have a product or a service in Emerald City's case that you can sell, and then you can say X% of this service will always be allocated to this account, and this account is the thing that underwrites our initial liquidity pool, and why you can trust that if you send in a coin to get it flipped to flow, this money is what's going to pay for that transaction.
Yeah.
And then you just hope that most people don't do that transaction and eat your liquidity pool too fast, because then you're fucked.
Sounds really exciting.
It's terrifying. It's why we haven't gone live with our own one yet, because when it's just when it's an off-chain token, you have a whole lot more control. But it's good that you want to find people who know more about tokenomics, because it's needed.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's sort of the DAO way that like let's treat this, sort of as a learning process for all of us, right? We're all in it to learn about DAOs and to pave the way for DAOs on Flow. So, besides Blockdo token, I think, which is like the Blockdo native token or something for their DAO, this is sort of like a, I don't know what that's called, but like the pioneer, right? So like we do want to provide some like good example of how DAOs could do this. So let's do that. There was one other thing I wanted to say. God, my memory is really, this is a problem. This is a massive problem. I had another thing I wanted to say about this, but I guess that'll have to wait. Oh wait. Oh yeah. So Bam mentioned, like, I think the utility is important. Yeah, so that's another reason I'm bringing this up. We've had a lot of talks. Andrea's mentioned this a few times, and others have talked about this as well. But like, there are really cool ways we can sort of take everything we've done and tie them together. So floats, Emerald ID, some premium Emerald ID, right? So there's a lot of things we can do with our tooling, and we can tie them together in some universe, right? The Emerald verse. I don't like the verse term, is becoming a little overloaded, but you get the idea, right? Like the Emerald universe of like stuff that's going on. A lot of this can be tied together with some link, and I think that link could be the Emerald token itself, where in all the products we have, the Emerald token is a booster or like a requirement in some way, right? Like even if we were to go to like, what is this, like pre-mint? So we were looking at pre-mint earlier. We scroll down, they were talking about like, okay, there's a minimum ETH balance, right? So like maybe this is like a minimum Emerald token balance for some of the things that we would do personally, right? So that could tie in there, or in floats, right? Like if you hold like a minimum of 10 Emerald token, you're allowed to create like, a cooler float event or something like that, right? With Emerald ID, if you have at a minimum of 15 Emerald, you can, do some premium feature with Emerald ID, right? So, yeah. So I'm reading the chat here, so I just want to make sure I'm keeping up with the chat. So, where will my fund go so as to participate in token offerings? What utility rights do I have so that I have to get? Yeah, exactly. So, exactly what Bam is saying. Calcoin mentions Emerald City NFT for initial capital. Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff that I just am not well versed on at the moment. But that's what we're working towards. One thing I do want to mention is we want to keep this process as clear and simple as possible. One big mistake that I think I've seen other DAOs, I'll take Developer DAO for example. So I participated in Developer DAO a little bit. It was like my first stage of DAOs ever, and that's a DAO on Ethereum. Now, what they had started with is they started with an NFT gated access model where you could only be in Developer DAO if you had an NFT. And what quickly went downhill was they realized it wasn't sustainable because they wanted to scale, and they realized that the 7,000 NFTs they had minted and capped was not enough to give everyone access to the Discord. So they spent, I don't know, 4 to 5 months trying to figure out a way to transition those NFTs to fungible tokens, and it was such a painful process and led to a lot of problems in the DAO. So while I do think that like an NFT initial like funding model would be fantastic, it's worth thinking about the fact that like that complicates the process pretty significantly because you have people with NFTs figuring out how to convert it to fungible token. You know, there's a lot of nuances that go into that. And I do want to also mention what Cripwalk is saying, right? So that's a huge part of this too, right? Because NFT is also a very overused term in the blockchain world, where like you're like, oh, an NFT drop, and like people come flying out of the woodworks, like, oh my god, like, oh okay, NFT, and they don't know what they're buying. And then they're like, okay, when you like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? And like, they don't realize what they're purchasing. So we should also be smart about how we're positioning this. It's not, I don't want to ever call this a drop because it's not a drop. It's absolutely not what this is. We should make sure that we're very clear about our wording to, when this goes out.
It's the NPR model. I really think I think that yes, NFTs unfortunately have some seriously bad baggage. The whole line goes up problem. But if you frame it very openly as the NPR funding model, like we're releasing these limited edition plates and commemoratives so that you too can help the great work we do at EC continue. Do you like open models that are available for everybody? Fund EC. Mm-hmm. How do you fund EC? By buying EC NFTs.
Yep. Yeah.
It's all in the frame.
Yep. Yeah, and so Brainchild also, so exactly what I was going to say. So let me get into some of the utilities here. So just like BAM and everyone's mentioning, right? So there obviously needs to be utility here, right? We can't just be like, oh, it's a currency of exchange in Emerald City and expect people to hold it, right? So there needs to be some reason to hold it. So these are some ideas I have, right? You need X emeralds to create a float event. So listen, float is entirely free. It's open for all. It will always be that way. I don't believe in like token gate. Like I don't believe in token or like putting a paywall on like open source tooling that like was built out of like the goodness of people's hearts, right? I don't believe in that sort of thing. Of course, this isn't like solely up to me. So if people want to overwrite that, that's part of the process here. But I do think that like we could use Emerald in some way to add some like maybe even premium features to float. Like maybe we cap the amount of events someone can create at like a certain number, or I don't know, something like that. Or like some premium event that you can create if you have X emeralds, whatever that means. You would need at least X emeralds to have an emerald ID. Hold on, let me. Yeah. So you need X emeralds to have an emerald ID. You need at least, this is where I think, this is what Brainchild was mentioning, what I think is really cool, is that, you would need at least X emeralds to participate in some premium Emerald Academy bootcamp, right? So, if our Emerald Academy sort of starts to gain traction and people like what we're doing, it would be cool if we had some sort of like, token holding requirement for some of the even academies we're doing. And, of course it wouldn't be like super expensive, but it would be some proof that like you are like, like interested in participating in that boot camp. So I'm reading the chat here. Could the Emerald token be a token that could be used across the ecosystem? Oh yeah. So that's another, like, I'm sure Support Monkey would latch onto this really quickly. But that's sort of like the, Support Monkey, you keep referring like to the Hyperverse thing, but But yes, so that's really important as well, right? Because Emerald City is producing all of this tooling, a lot of which will be specifically DAO tooling, and like the reputation system, for example. So, like the goal is to develop a reputation system that is used by many DAOs, right? So we want to develop a system that's great for a lot of DAOs. And the hope is that those DAOs could use something like Emerald Token so they don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. And put out their own token. Of course they can, but the Emerald City token could be like the backer of like all of these voting like mechanisms, which I think could be super sick. But that's of course, difficult. But so, absolutely, my concern was more about the outward appearance of it than anything else. Absolutely, yeah. Yep. So how would you go about setting it up with different partners? It's a great question. So one of the things we've been talking about with the reputation system, again, was that like we're going to set up this system that is usable by all DAOs. And if that's possible, then, other DAOs could theoretically use Emerald Token as a way of governance, right? Like if you own X amount of Emerald Token, you can vote with this amount of power or something like that. Or Emerald City itself could even set up like a gated sort of access to that, where like you can only use reputation system if you have this holding requirement. I'm just completely speaking random ideas here, but
Imagine a flow-wide reputation system. Like one of the problems in Ethereum right now is that like if you create a project, I forget, it's like these baby dolls. Like this artist girl said she made them, but it turns out it was made by somebody else. Now, strictly speaking, she could just drop her Ethereum identity, create a new Ethereum identity, and go running off all on her own. But if the community had some standard identity grantor that they all agreed, hey, these people are trustworthy, we can trust what they say about people, the Emerald ID could kind of become that because we're so early in the Flowverse.
yeah. Yeah, so could you imagine that where like there's a flow-wide, I like that term, a flow-wide reputation. That would be amazing. The question there is like how what is the incentive for like a different DAO, for example, to use our reputation system? Is it because it's already built out?
People
We've already
won't
done a lot of
invest in
thought.
No, it's because people won't like the idea, the framing, especially because of how connected, honestly, EC is to many of the people at Dapper. You can lend legitimacy. So you say, instead of being doxxed, your identity is housed with EC. Because there's this whole thing in the Ethereum world. You can't trust a project if the founders haven't doxed themselves. So you have some semblance of an idea of where the fuck they might go. This is kind of a solution to that problem right at the start. And you just say, hey, if you want to be trustworthy, you have to have the EC identity because we vouch that you are who you say you are. And then it's going to be on EC to spend some money and create systems to actually validate that people are who they say they are. And that's a hella valuable service.
I just want to clarify one thing though. There is no formal connection to Dapper at all. So
there is not.
Well, I know, but it's the appearance. It's all about the outside appearance of it. All of the different parties that are so involved.
I'm sure that the more Emerald grows, the more it can create partnerships with all sorts of companies. What I think is more powerful than people from Dapper being in contact with Emerald is actually how many projects across the Flow ecosystem are already using Emerald ID, right? I think that goes a much longer way, because when you become the de facto ID provider, let's say, right? And now it's just like token verification on Discord mainly, but let's say we start doing things like the pre-mint, and then you can connect all of your other accounts like GitHub, Twitter, Facebook, going back to what you said, Support Monkey, around like verifying a user beyond just their Discord ID, that will be definitely super powerful. And regardless of who the official, let's say, connections are or partners are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jacob, I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
Oh no, it's totally fine. I was actually going to mention a similar thing that yeah, there is no like formal connection to Dapper, but we do there will be some sort of like community spotlight going out on Dapper's end for Emerald City actually in a couple of days, so definitely look out for that. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, despite there not being any, any formal connection, you definitely have, and I mean, everyone here on this call and everyone participating in Emerald, you have very big fans, not just from especially from Dapper as well. So, and from the Flow team and everyone. So yeah, it's not like Dapper is ignoring Emerald.
We are pretty cool, guys. Yep. Popular kids over here. So yeah, I'm trying to read up on this chat. Oh gosh, yeah. So I can vote in multiple Flow projects. Yeah, love the reputation as well. So absolutely, my concern was more about the outward. Yeah. So I already read that one. Yeah.
Know your customer laws also is a way that Emerald ID starts to have real utility, because the amount of work required to comply with know your customer laws is a substantial barrier to a lot of projects. If Emerald can solve that problem in a distributed manner, so it handles the know your customer requirement, and projects just say, hey, in order for you to participate with me, I need you to go through Emerald so that I have a verifiable way of complying with my country's know my customer laws.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the state of KYC is so bad, so many people can't get past. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of platforms still using email and password. I mean, NBA Top Shot itself still uses a password gated login. So yeah, it's a difficult problem. Yeah,
this is also where the token, your token comes in play. Like, how do you solve your liquidity problem? By maybe providing EC becomes the pair for a whole bunch of projects that need a pair token, and they can't afford to pair to Blockdo, but maybe they can afford to pair to EC.
Yeah, it's this is of course this is all so awesome to be talking about. It's unfortunately it's completely out of my my realm of experience, but so I might not have all the answers, but this is great. Would be cool to make KYC like a game that you get points for completing steps, especially trying to get people to move to a new chain and get rewards for. Well, that's pretty much like the founding idea of the reputation system. So the idea is that like people like who are contributing, and because Emerald City is a DAO, of course, people that are contributing in Emerald City, if they're in the 3 different guilds, right? So education, governance, and building. If people are educating others in the DAO, they get Emerald City education points. If people are building tools like Float or Premint, they get building guild points. If people are like all of you right now who are talking about like the more governance or admin type stuff, they get governance points. And what that does is that it accumulates a record of reputation points that you've built up in Emerald City. But as you can imagine, this extends far beyond Emerald City itself, because who's to say that like if you're educating someone on cadence in Emerald City, that shouldn't apply to like your reputation as a whole throughout the Flow ecosystem, right? So people that are like even looking for like experienced educators in the Flow ecosystem, like you can sort of judge that by maybe like what's their education reputation or something like that. So this definitely applies to the whole Flow ecosystem as a whole, and I think you said that pretty well. So what does the Premint refer to? So Premint was something that I believe Dean brought up. So Premint is basically just like a whitelisting platform where you can set up like some like requirements to whitelist yourself. Like you have some token in your wallet, you log in on Twitter, you connect your wallet, you follow someone on Twitter, something like basically a whitelist. And then if you do these steps, you can like register yourself on like a form. Like heavily used for like NFT drops, for example, but could extend beyond that. So yeah, CryptBlock says, could there be a solution to distributed verification between? Yeah, so that's actually exactly what Emerald ID is doing right now. So CryptBlock, if you actually go to, I'll link the channel right here. So if you actually go to this channel, right there, and you click on that and you go and click verify, you actually set up your own Emerald ID. And that's sort of like that's sort of the verification we're using across DAOs. So it actually already exists. Of course, in like a early stage, but it is on mainnet, so yeah. Okay, so that was the token discussion. I knew that would be very interesting. And then, yeah, so last thing I want to say here is that, so these were the guild leaders during season 0. These are also the guild leaders as of now for season 1. Of course, because we're in a new season, does it verify deeper than Discord username? No, so right now, Emerald ID maps your on-chain mainnet address to your Discord. But, you know, of course, the goal there is to, like, expand that. Anyway, yeah, so last thing, and then we'll tie back to all this. So these are the guild leaders. We are behind on giving out contributions for season 0 just because there was so much happening during the past 2 weeks. But this is, like, a top priority for the next, like, I would say we should probably even get this done the next week. Because like we should just wrap up season 0 and just leave that behind, and really like look forward to the next month or two. So that will be out in the next week, I promise. And that's all I have for this town hall. So yeah, awesome discussions as always. And as you know, as usual, we sort of stick around to talk about everything.
Hey, Jacob, just a quick one for that contribution stuff.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere there was a thread or something we were supposed to comment on. Is there any action? Just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah, so the hope was that like people in the DAO would submit like a document of like the things they did during season 0, and a few people did that, and we're gonna look at that. But like as a guild leader itself, like you don't technically have to do that because we're gonna be meeting in these individual guilds to like go over like what each other and like other people have done. So Dean, I wouldn't worry about submitting that yourself. But if you're talking about for other people, then yeah, they could like write up a little notes document about what they did, and submit that. But for example, like, you know, Ben, for example, who I really want to make sure gets some sort of like FUSD, just for like the, you know, our work that he's done. Like we know what he's done, so like we don't have to like inconvenience him and make him do that, like for example.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And the other thing that kind of comes to mind with this is these town halls are great, but as you can see, they kind of run, you know, the whole breadth. And I guess looking at other DAOs, like most of the guilds within them sort of have breakout sort of discussions.
Yeah.
Is it worth having a 30-minute, like, you know, separate for these different areas?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's really funny you mention that. I was thinking about mentioning that during this town hall, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to. But I'm really happy you brought that up because yes, we go over every time now. And I do think it's worth splitting up in individual guilds. I really do. And of course, we still could have like a 20 to 30 minute like entire DAO debrief at some point. But yes, I do think this should be like one of the last times we do like an entire guild. We cover everything in one meeting because as you mentioned, it's a lot.
I think there's still a requirement for like, but I mean, you could probably skim across the surface a lot more easily of all the areas in a call like this, the town hall, and then, you know, whether it's once a week or whatever that cadence is, the guild leaders at least should get together probably to talk about the different areas and invite others they think that should be there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so what we could do this upcoming week is maybe like 2 weeks from now, instead of having one of these, well, maybe we could still have one of these at the normal time, like you said, like it is important to have that, but we'll make it like a more shorter like overview, and then we'll split up the other guilds into more shorter meetings. The other reason I think that's a better idea is because while I do love all of you very much, and I love being sort of like the go-to like leader of these meetings, it would be cool if people, like even some of the guild leaders that are like in each of the guilds, if you're interested in like taking up sort of like the more administrative tasks, it would be great if you want to even to like sort of maybe even lead these meetings yourselves. Of course, I don't mind doing these at all, but I do want to make sure that other voices are heard. And you know, it's hard for me to tell as like the host, like whether or not I'm doing a good job. I hope I am, and I guess I imagine I am based on like what we've done so far. But like, you know, it is hard for me to like judge whether or not I'm like covering everything. So you suck. True. It's all in your head.
Just kidding. We all love you. You're doing great.
Thanks, Andrea. You're bad, by the way.
Ex-guild leader.
You're bad. Yeah, you thought this was a down. No, it's just me.
It's a dictatorship.
Yeah, it's a dictatorship.
We're all vassals.
The problem is you're non-fungible. We need you to be fungible so you can be in more than one place at the same time.
Maybe we should not work on Premint, but work on cloning Jacob.
Can you imagine? This world would be like insane. How can people that are non-technical? Okay, yeah, so definitely where you can absolutely contribute is in the governance guild. We need a lot of help there because what tends to happen is you get like 10 to 15 brilliant people in a Discord channel and shit just goes haywire. So if you could sort of like what you've done today, even in the town hall, you've done like an amazing job. Like even just like some of the stuff you commented, like talking about like what we could do with Emerald ID or, you know, all that kind of stuff. We need a lot of that insight inside the governance guild to talk about the reputation system. And that's completely non-technical. Of course, there are technical components like, you know, actually developing the smart contracts for it and all that kind of stuff. But we could really use a lot of your insight there. That'd be great. Yeah. It's just one channel right now. It's actually, I'll link it here. It's this one. This one. So yeah, would love to have your insight there. And like I said, this like the reputation system and the token stuff is slowly going to move up on the priority list as we get Float on mainnet and Emerald Academy bootcamp running. So yeah, that's going to pick up quickly.
I think part of the thing too is that like normally for governance to occur of any kind, you need multiple things to be happening at the same time, and that's why you need, you know, either a governor or a council or something. And right now, there's basically one project going on at a time, and it's the project that you are working on. And then people are helping you, accomplish whatever project it is that you are currently working on.
Yeah.
As the academy comes online, optimally, that's how you clone and create more Jacobs. Right? That's the goal, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, I mean it is, yeah, and also like just to educate in general, but yes.
And you know, and therein will be, you know, that's actually where we can start, I think, needling in on what to solve with governance, because it's such a huge. I don't want to use the word problem because it's not a problem, but it's such a large space to think about. Like, what is governance supposed to do? Well, the first thing it needs to do is figure out what the fuck we should do. Like, what's the next project? If there's another Jacob that gets cloned, if BAM is now the second Jacob, because BAM is the first one who I think will probably get all the way through your courses and BU. Yeah. Who decides what BAM does next? Does BAM decide what BAM does next? Or do you? Or does the Builders Guild? Or does the overall DAO?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point about like sort of like where like my like sort of power is right now, in that like everything that like I tend to like narrow in on, and like I said this a billion times, like you guys know me at this point, like I pick something and I immediately just go all in on it, like no other. And I think that's a great thing, and also like maybe has also some downsides to it, because what happens is like I get really focused on something, and then everyone in Emerald City like also completely narrows in on it. And it's great because we get things done in like literally 2 weeks. But it's also like, you know, is that like, I don't know if that's good that like everyone like is just doing what I'm doing. And that's sort of why I think what Dean brought up is sort of important, is like slowly delegating these administrative tasks to other people to help build people up, and sort of like cloning these Jacobs, where it's like, if, having like I can imagine like in a month from now, like, Bam is totally running the education guild, right? And, making these slides and doing all these things, then people look to Bam to be like, oh, well, what is Bam doing in the education guild? And they can follow that. And maybe at the same time, Calcoin's doing something in the governance guild and people are following him there, right? So it's not all just what I'm doing, because, while I am sort of a Superman and I am the best in the world, it's hard for me to be focused on everything at once, right? Like I can't do float, emerald token, pre-mint, emerald ID all at the same time. I'm just going to explode. So figuring out how to delegate that is going to be helpful.
I think, if you have a token, if Emerald has a token and Emerald has got a liquidity pool that developers know they can trust that the tokens are redeemable, you could set those tasks and say, hey, here's the quest for this week. You must be this level, meaning you must have gone through this many boot camps or have this level of reputation in order to even attempt this quest. And this quest, if you succeed, pays out this much.
Yep.
And it always pays out in Emerald.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the last, like, because I hate keeping people overtime, for the last, like, 5 minutes that we have here, I guess, let's sort of, like, wrap up what we talked about today and, like, what we can look for in the next 2 weeks. So, because we do this on, like, a 2-week basis. So, first of all, Emerald Academy, that's going to be... The good thing about Emerald Academy is that it's not complicated from, like, the Emerald City standpoint. All the content's out there, and it's starting tomorrow. It's just going to be running. So... Emerald Academy, people are going to be, like, I really think that this is going to get a lot of attention, like, pretty quickly. So people are going to be submitting a lot of quests, and they're going to be asking a lot of questions. So if we could, like, if you're interested in, like, educating, or I believe that educating is the best way to learn. So if you're interested in educating, I really need some help on, like, answering people's questions and grading people's quests. So that would be really helpful. We could talk about that more in the Education Guild after this town hall. So that's going to happen. And then we're also going to have 2 live workshops a week that I will handle that. That's totally fine. I was planning on, like, setting this up anyway since I wrote the course. So those will be 2 times a week workshops. And yeah, so after it gets up and running tomorrow, it'll just be out there. So that's going to be pretty easy. Although time consuming, but whatever. Yeah, so that's all fine. Float, this is also sort of like up to me to sort of like figure out when the contract is going to be ready. So this is like easy in the sense that, like, it's going to happen and there's not that much that has to be talked about on the float side. So yeah, and then I guess Andrea, like, however, like, whenever I wrap up the contract, I guess we could, like, finalize some things on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we should do, like, one final pass and make sure everything's working properly and add any last features. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. Emerald City website, like, I'm just gonna delegate this to you, Dean. Again, no rush at all. It's not like we're, like, dying to have a website open, but like, I'm just gonna leave this to you and your team. And then the Emerald token, yeah. So this is where, like, I definitely need the most help because I just don't know anything about this. Like I said, I'm meeting with Chase tomorrow. She's usually, like, the token expert / like DAO expert. So meeting with her tomorrow just to, like, get an initial understanding of what all this even means. But this is where I could definitely use the most help in the governance side. Yeah, and, like, figuring out, like, from more general, like, point of view, like, figuring out how Emerald token ties into, like, Emerald ID, how floats ties into Emerald token, how Emerald token ties into sort of like the spider web of, like, Emerald. So that would be great. Cool.
Hire an accountant.
Yeah,
I really mean that. Before you hit mint on anything, just because this is not a fly-by-night project and this will probably work, you really should hire an accountant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but
personally,
yeah, this
like, not just for EC, like, you personally, Jacob, should hire an accountant to make sure that you personally aren't about to take on a metric fuck ton of liability without meaning to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely understand. I was gonna make a rug pulling joke, and then I realized that's just not funny, and that would be terrible. I do joke a lot, but that's probably not ideal in the town hall meeting. No, that's not. No. I have my red pen ready if you need someone to grade papers. Oh, nice. That'd be great. Yeah. I mean, listen, whoever can help, that would be great. Yes, I will definitely bring Chase to the next town hall. I will drag Chase to the next town hall, even if she doesn't have time. Hopefully, she has time.
Yeah, so some of these things, like some of the saying the users have. Okay, how do I say this? There have got to be activities that non-technical people can do, like the grading of papers, as it were. You would have an answer sheet. You could have the answer sheet. People could grade papers and almost get like staking rewards for grading papers.
Yeah. The only I was gonna make an answer sheet. The only reason I didn't was because, like, honestly, I want people to mess up the grading at first because that's like how you learn in a sense. For example, like if Bam like wants to go grade like an assignment or a quest, like it would honestly be cool if Bam like incorrectly like I mean, it'd be ideal if like it was all right, but like I think that messing up the grading is part of the learning process. So like I feel like that's how you learn, you know? Like I feel grading is like almost the best way to learn, you know?
Yeah, well, it's. I guess it was because you were talking about paying people for learning,
Yeah.
so to speak. Like,
Yeah.
so if your grades are a function of what you get paid out, and somebody makes a mistake on your grades, and it's incumbent upon you, the learner, to note that they made a mistake, while it might be advantageous to the grader, it offloads a lot of risk onto the learner.
Yeah. Yeah, this ties into like what I was talking about a couple months ago, which was like, you know, basically everything is coming down to this reputation system because with like the people that are grading these quests, ideally they would get education reputation, which ties into the token, which ties into payment, which ties into like, you know, getting paid for learning. So a lot of this is really into like in the reputation system that we just don't have yet.
Yeah. Building.
So if people push through the content quickly, can they help grade after they complete everything or after they? Yes, 100%. So like I was just mentioning, like, you know, in the ideal Emerald City world, that would like if you push through the content and then helped grade, you would get like education reputation for that. Of course, that's not out there yet, but you know, that's like one of the things that would happen like in a couple months from now when that's out. I also do want to mention that like the reputation system is a very, very difficult thing to like actually code out. Like talk about just like, you know, the theoretical stuff, but like in code it's so difficult because, you know, like there's things that you need to like sort of like guess about the future and like how you're going to use the reputation system before you actually code it, because with smart contracts, once they're out there, you know. So
Isn't that what you could do the modularity thing though? Where like anything where you're not more than say 85% confident, couldn't you just make that in the main contract something that references another contract? So that at the end of the day, if you need to make a change to that modular bit, you're not redeploying the whole reputation system. You're redeploying one modular bit.
oh yeah. I mean that's how it's ultimately coded as of now. Even is like, you know, the actual like the value of your reputation. Like let's say I have 50, 25, and 20. Those numbers itself will be in one contract, and the only functionality in that contract will be adding and removing from it. And then in a separate contract will be the functionality, right? So what you can do with that reputation and stuff like that, so that if the functionality changes, the core values don't change.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, but with Cadence, like in Solidity, that's an easier problem than Cadence because in Cadence everything is like so strictly typed that I could talk about this forever, but it's like it's not easy.
And that is why if you do it, it'll become the default code that people will just use.
True, yeah. We're taking over the world, poor monkey.
One contract at a time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Quick
so that's-
question, Jacob.
Yeah.
Did we get to another thing which I don't want to? If it's a deeper conversation, we don't have to go into it now. But the commercial side of any tooling that gets developed, is that something that we'll just decide on a case by case basis? Like, let's say someone in or a collection of people, builds the equivalent of premint.xyz on Flow, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that we feel like we would look to then commercialize, or is it because we could also have people funding it on the understanding that it is going to be a open source style licensing and free to use, or we could have people funding it going, oh, hang on, like, I don't mind paying, but then I want like a year's subscription for free or like something like, I don't know. I just want to get this kind of clear understanding in my head around the tooling. Is there a commercial element to it?
Yeah, the answer to the is there a commercial element? Like the simple answer is yes. I don't know how that's done yet. I think this is like closely related to Emerald Token, or like Emerald Token in a way. Like, if pre-mint, like if we were to set up pre-mint where every time you set up a pre-mint you have to pay like $10, maybe we could do that in like the like Emerald Token way, where it's like you every time you set up a pre-mint you have to pay Emerald City like 5 Emerald Token, and then boom, that's like a massive utility point for Emerald City as well, because that's sort of incentivizes people to buy the token and use that in all of our tooling. And we had a conversation with Andrea the other day too about like premium floats or something like that, where maybe we only allow people to make very basic floats, but any additional features we add in the future will all tie into like a premium float thing where, you have to own some Emerald Token to do that. So there is some commercial element. I don't know how that's done, but that's what I'm imagining right now. I hope that answers that.
Can I just add one little thing?
Yeah.
What's interesting is we can all tie this back to Emerald ID. So the cool thing about Emerald ID is that it acts as an access layer to things, right? So on the one hand, we can always leave free access to things, but for more premium levels of interaction, let's say, for example, floats wants to have a verified float, right? So a float account that has special perks so that it shows up differently and the floats have a bit more officialness, if you can allow the word, then that might be something where we token gate through Emerald ID based on specific parameters. So that Emerald ID can kind of be the fulcrum around which like different access to Emerald services is coordinated through.
Yeah.
Just something to think about. I think there's potential there, especially with the conversations earlier about kind of Emerald ID becoming, like the de facto way to verify on Flow.
And with like so one of the key things holding back adoption of major IP, which is like the in-demand thing all the time, like real, the IP that everybody wants is the things that they see in their everyday lives. But those people all require real IDs. They want to know who's buying their products so that they can make sure they're not being stolen from. This kind of an actual useful ID like this is the kind of thing that you could very much license to a party like that, and they have the funds to do it. It's a smaller NFT project, they don't have the funds necessarily to bankroll this for you. But if you can show a working proof of project to any number of large players, I would imagine that would be the kind of thing where you could get funding that way. Or they would say, cool, we can use this and we can verifiably know that Billy Bob Sue is actually from Alabama, and that's their phone number and address, and they're the ones who bought my Mickey Mouse NFT. You know?
Yeah. Dean, does any of that answer your question at all?
Yeah. Look, and actually, I think that the points around identity are great. It's kind of a starting point. But I like what you said around, the commercial model, if there is one, and it could be, a freemium star where, everyone can use the tool, but then if you want advanced features, then you need to pay. And the payment, if you're having a token for the DAO, I think that makes a ton of sense to, because you want activity and liquidity and you want transactions happening on that. You want to drive demand for it. So I think, it probably is something that we should wait until we figure out the token before we figure out business model.
Yeah. Cool.
I just want someone to build me a pre-mint.xyz like as fast as possible.
Well, listen, given the nature of Emerald City, I have no doubt we'll start tackling that soon.
I've got like a check burning a hole in my pocket. I want to do it. I just don't have the time or the dev resources. They're busy on 5 other things. So like the distributed sort of more open source and, willing to incentivize and pay people for it is just so appealing.
Well, so Dean, I wanted to ask you about this. So this is going to sound really like newbie, so I'm sorry for this, but I've never had experienced this before. So how does that work? Where it's like you have money in your pocket, you want pre-mint XYZ built, you don't know how to do that, so Emerald City does know how to do that. So how does that work from your end? Like you're saying that we would just set up like a vault and you would just pay the vault and then we would just take that money and just put it in there. But like how does that sort of structure? Because like, imagine that like this was an Emerald City where like you didn't know me and you didn't know all of us, right? There must be some contract in place where like when you do that, we have to put it out there. I mean, of course we would, but like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
Well, I think the model we're pursuing is probably the way to go, right? Which is sort of like, community driven. This thing has like, I'm not going to be the only customer, and the community feels it's something that is needed. And so they decide to work on it. And then like, I think early on, I kind of explained my background coming from open source Magento, which was an e-commerce system, which became very popular, and it's free and still is free to this day. But, Adobe ended up buying the commercial arm of it and is now a very expensive high-end e-commerce platform, which they've added a whole bunch of like, premium features to. But the project started as a bunch of people that just went like, this tool is needed. And like, we believe that the community can do the best job of kind of distributing the sort of decision making on which features and then the speed to market.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing here. Like, the idea can start off as a community driven one. Of course, commercial entities, whether it's Dapper or like Genie Ace or whoever wants to say, look, I really want that community to build that tool. I'm prepared to put in X amount to it, mostly out of sort of goodwill, because you don't know whether that tool is worth, if we put in 20K, it might be worth 20K to develop end to end. It might be 20K per seat, per license. It might be 100K. Like, I don't know. No one knows because we're not taking a commercially driven first approach.
Yeah.
But I think commercial entities can fund, and that's how we start, right? So I think, you kind of, if as a DAO, what we should be doing is going around to speak to organizations we think, and I think a bunch of NFT projects would all go, yep. And then how much would that be worth to you? And then you go, okay, well, we think there's market demand from these 10 companies immediately. They're all prepared to pay somewhere between 5 and 20 grand for it. Therefore, it's this amount. And like, to me, that's how I would take it to market. Like, you still let the community and the members of the DAO build it bottoms up. But then we figure out, okay, how do we charge? How much of it is free? How much of it is premium? I don't know. That's just the way I would approach it.
Okay.
I don't think it's one company decides they want the DAO to build something and they go, I mean, the DAO for me is not an outsourced development shop to one entity, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, it's like Emerald City was thinking of doing this anyway, so it's almost like, how can we help that happen? It's not like, like do it and then you just like, submit some payment. It's like, well, we're doing this anyway. We need help. How can we help?
Yeah, and I think it's what I said, which is just I think the DAO just philosophically should be working on things that are broadly applicable in the Flow ecosystem. We should take that time to say, look, it's not just Dean who's jumping up and down saying, I want this, I want this, to make sure that it's like not just sitting there and only gets used by one or two people. So the first step is like doing a feasibility study to say, how interesting is this to people? Who would use it? And then how much would they pay for it? And then going, okay, we think it's broadly applicable. We think there's commercial demand for it. And then we take it back to the DAO and say, okay, guys, the building guild decides, is this something they want to work on? They can work on, there's time to work on, and there's no conflict in the market, like someone's not already building it. And then they go, okay, we think if, we go back to the company and say, like, the 10 of you that expressed interest in this, would you be able to all put in 5 or 10K, and then we could commercialize. We'd put a version in market that is of the right standard.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, I mean, I guess my question then is like, what is the incentive for someone like Genie, for like a company like Genie Ace to actually give some sort of payment? Because like outside of like the goodwill of like your heart, it's like you could technically just sit in the background and just wait for it to be developed, right? Because it's going to be developed anyway. So I guess what's the incentive then for you or others to help?
I think it's partly it is open source ethos, which is, yep, I want to fund the community. I want to be part of that community. I want to do goodwill for the community. But it also, part of it is speed to market. Like, I don't want to be beholden to some other person who builds it and then jacks the price up, or is slow, or for whatever reason, right? Like, it comes down to two things: community ethos of open source style development, and two, speed to market should be quicker. In theory, it should be quicker than some individual company just building it.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Sorry to drop a last minute bomb of discussion, and
No,
but we should.
No, it's great. It's freaking great. You've really piqued my interest now. Like I said, I mean, I'm all in already. No problem.
Like, if I had two developers sitting on the sidelines who weren't already building a bunch of stuff and behind where I want them to be on our own personal roadmap, I'd spin up another company to build this, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited about this already. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah, so as always, there's a lot going on, a lot to do, but there's a lot of smart people in here, so I think we can do it. I'm going to end things there only because I have to now transition to working on a school project, which is wildly less interesting, let me tell you that. Would much rather be here. But I think we had some great discussions today, and I think we will sort of segment this town hall into groups, into guild groups, in the upcoming 2 weeks. So thanks everybody so much, and I'll see you then.
Hoorah.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, Dean. Thank you, everybody. And look forward to Emerald Academy tomorrow. Thank you, Cripwalk. Thanks for all you did today. Thanks, Bam. Thanks, Kelcoin. Thanks, War Monkey.